How's it going, YouTube? This is Martin Ross and I'm back again. And as you can see, I'll be doing another beat remake video, but apparently I haven't been doing enough of the MJ stuff, and I noticed that I haven't, and by request I'm doing Who Is It. I've had a lot of people ask me to do that song. They loved it, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it. This is gonna be a long video. I'm gonna have to do a lot of cuts and editing, but this is going to go into the parts that I'm going to be doing. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be a more in-depth part of how I'm recording, okay? So I'm doing Who Is It by Michael Jackson. That's off his Dangerous album. It's 103 beats per minute. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the bass. The bass is quite simple. I'm using D, C, G, and A. Here we go. Alright, so the drums. The drums are pretty complicated here. So I'm going to break it down in each step. And each step, I'm going to show you how to do it. Here we go. So first is the snare. So the next is the kick. Here we go. So the hi-hats, they don't come in on the one. They come in every once in a while. Here we go. Okay, so the next is the sizzle. The sizzle comes in on the upbeats. Here we go. So the next part is the wooden blocks. It sounds kind of funky, but it'll work. Here we go. Okay, now the claps. The claps, they just go through the whole entire beat. Here we go. So bring those down, because you just kind of want it. You don't want it to bleed over the track. You just want it in the background. So next is the bells. Now I'm putting these bells in so that when we get to the next part, you don't have to do all this copying over. Okay. All right. So I like that. Let's see here. All right. So we're gonna move on to the strings here. All right. So now we're on the strings, and on the strings, I'm gonna start just to follow A, G, F, E, and D, and I'm gonna follow that in thirds on my right hand. So here we go. Alright, but yeah, that's the beginning right there. So we're going to move on now. Okay, so now we're in part 2. And in part 2, remember when I had the bells in the first part? You're going to bring those bells in. You're going to copy them over your next scene or your next sequence. So that way you don't have to worry about that. It's going to be 8 measures. So now we're pretty much done. So the next part, or not done, but we have a ways to go, but we got most of our work done. So the next part, we're going to use the rim shots. Now the rim shots, they kind of have that little that hip hop swing to it, New Jack swing style to it. So here we go. Okay, so you did hear a delay in there, and that's the way the song was written. So the song's kind of going to have that little delay in there. So I add that in just for that effect. So now I'm going to do the kick. Here we go. So next is the hi-hat. So the hi-hat's kind of got that little jingle sound going on. Here we go. Alright, so I added a little bit in there, but that's pretty much the first part. So the next part, the bass, is I'm just going to be using B flat, A, D, E, and then back to A. Here we go. So now we got the keys. So on the keys I'm going to go with a B minor. So B minor, first inversion, suspended D minor, E flat. Then I'm going to go with G, A, and then A in the bass. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to cut this part, but typically what I'm going to do is, because I don't have a pedal, I'm going to give it more of a sustain. To give it more of a sustain, you have two choices. You can either pull the notes, make them longer, or you can go into the MIDI controller data and then create your sustain. In my opinion, using Machine, because Machine has a terrible, terrible automation system, I would highly suggest you just pull your notes over to get that long sustain. If you're using anything else, any DAW, a lot of people probably here or watch me use Ableton. You'll use the Ableton transition and or not transition, automation, and you can easily create your lines on your sustain and then end it. If you're like me, I highly suggest that you pull your notes over to make it longer to give you your sustain. Again, that's because I do not have a pedal, so if I find it easier if I just did this. Pull the notes. So I like that. So let's skip over to the next part. So now we're on our third part. And on our third part, we're going to copy the drums that we had in the previous one. And we're just to bring them over to the next part. Again, make sure that your pattern or whatever you're using does not have the sizzles and line in that, because if it does, it's going to be loud. We don't need those at this point in our pattern here. Okay, so the bass is pretty simple. I'm using B flat, and then C, and then the final one is A. So here we go. Want to stop it there because you'll see how the strings go. Now in the strings, the string part, I'm using F, B flat, D. The next part, I'm using G, C, and E, and the last part is D, E, and A. Okay? So, here we go. Again, I'm going to skip this part, but I'm just going to cut the strings and make the strings sound longer. As I mentioned before, I kind of like that overlap, so that way it gets that sustain. I do not have a sustain pedal at the moment. That's what you want, and so that's the part. Alright, so I'm moving to my last part. My last part is pretty much the same thing as the last one, but the strings are going to be different. They're going to kind of follow the very first time we introduce the strings. You're going to copy the same drum sets from the previous one into this again. You're going to make sure you mute the those rattles there, bells, and you're really just going to follow the same type of thing, but it's not going to go all the way down the scale. So you're really using A, G, and C, and then you're going to follow those in thirds, okay? Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those 8 more times, or well, copy it for 8 more bars. But I do suggest, if you plan on being more of a player, don't do this. But again, this is the benefits of being a producer: is you get to do this stuff. You get to cut things to make them easier. So that way you don't spend time like that, and that's why I'm doing that, so that way I can make this video a little bit more faster for you. But again, that's the benefits, and then you're going to have the issues where you have playing issues because you always cut short. I have that problem, but that's for another day. Alright, so for the last 4 measures, I'm going to be using the strings. I'm going to be using A, G, and C, and then I'm just going to follow that. Now in the song, it's going to come to a stop, but that's in further editing, so I'm just going to show you guys the basics. So understand that. Please understand that when I'm doing that, okay? Okay, so next is the flute. Now, I'm going to do it by ear, but this is the sound that everybody tends to hum to on this song. Here we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. There's a lot of things I have to edit on that, you know, the velocity, because sometimes the velocity goes in and out, because this is actually played like a real flute. But other than that, that's pretty much it by ear. I played it by ear, but so when it ends in a stop, but that has to be edited later, so please forgive me on that. There's not much I can do here. I have to do that later. But other than that, let's move on. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to do the Vox. I'm going to play it at my own tempo, so here we go. Okay, so next I'm going to do the harmony part, and we go from there. So I was a little off on that part. So that's the power of production, is you can just cut where you want to cut and you're all set. So here's what it sounds like when it's finished. Well, here's what it sounds like when you put it all together. This is the idea. Alright guys, it's a long video, and I appreciate you guys for watching. So, if you have any more Michael Jackson requests, leave it in the comment. If you still have questions on what I did, leave it in the comment. I'll be glad to answer it for you guys. So this was Michael Jackson's Who Is It from his Dangerous album. Thank you guys so much for watching, so much for putting input and requesting this song. Please check out martinrossmusic.com for more information on my music. Please look in the description. I do have albums on sale and stuff like that. Again, please like, comment, and share. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day now.